You know, although we do irrigate all through the year, we are very careful about not overwatering. So we have an automatic irrigation system.
Okay.
And so it's set to specific times. And then as the weather gets hotter, the percentage increases. And then as the weather gets cooler, the percentage decreases, but you can also adjust it. So I'm always monitoring. And if I see that an area is getting too much water, then we reduce it. Because why? Like at the moment, we usually sort of irrigate every day, but at the moment we've actually had some days where we've skipped, because I'll go around and I'll see, no, well, the soil is actually damp, there's absolutely no need to water.
And I think, you know, although it must have been expensive to install, the amount of labor that you're saving, because I can't imagine someone going around with a hose pipe
in a property like this.
For something like this.
Yeah, and when we were watering manually, we actually found that we were killing more plants with too much water than too little water. Yeah, because you know, someone puts a sprinkler there and forgets about it. Yeah.
Whereas here they get just enough and it's regular.
Yes, and then we monitor it. Yeah.
How big? Okay, how big is your garden?
Well, so the property is 10 acres, but I'd say, I don't know, maybe 3/4 is landscaped. Yeah, so we have 6 guys, but 1 guy is just maintenance and driver and building. So basically 5 guys. 1 guy just does compost. That's all he does. And then the other 4 guys, what I've done is I've divided the landscape property up into 4, and they each have their area. But then it still takes quite a bit of management. Every few weeks I go around and I make a list. So I'll go around Calvin's area, which is this back area, and I'll write what he needs to do. Because although they've been doing it, Calvin has been with us for
a while,
22 years, a lot of them have been here a long time, they still just need that guidance of what to do. Yeah. So I'll walk around and I'll actually list cut back the Sanchesia or, you know, whatever, and list per bed kind of thing, and then I go around with them and explain it all. So I do that every few weeks. So yeah, your gardeners do still need management. They're not going to just arrive, and they need a lot of training. You know, when you first engage a gardener, you need to train them. You need to train them about the compost. You need to train them how to dig the edges of the beds, how to trim the plants, because I'm sure you would have noticed we don't clip our plants.
No.
I think I've got one little section where I've got 3 shrubs that I've made into like a topiary, but that is the only thing in the whole 10 acres we have done that. I mean, you can imagine if it was you doing that job and nobody's ever looking at or commenting on what you're doing and you're just coming to work every day and doing the same thing and nobody's actually saying, wow, this looks really good, or so just to keep that involvement with your guys. And and so because I've kept the trees and kept the majority of trees, it obviously creates a very shady garden. So I've planted shade-loving plants in all the shade areas. And of course the advantage with shade gardens is they don't use nearly as much water as full sun.
Right.
Yeah, and the same with the lawn. The lawn in the shade doesn't take nearly as much water as
in full sun
takes. Yeah.
So you said you moved into here and you started building from scratch. What was the first thing you actually started with in terms of designing your space, designing your garden?
Okay, so the first thing I did, we bought the plots, we came and looked at this jungle covered in lantana and decided where we would put the house. And then from there, once we moved onto the property, the first thing I did was put lawn around the house to settle the dust, and so that, you know, if dogs and children are running inside and outside, you're not getting too much dust and mud, and somewhere for children to run and dogs to run. So although lawn is it's very intensive and takes a lot of water and a lot of hard work, it is lovely to have some lawn just as space for children to play and dogs to play.
What type of lawn did you choose?
So we've planted, this is Richmond grass, or I call it Richmond grass, which does very well in the cold weather and in the shade. So as you can see here, it's pretty thick shade and the lawn covers very well. So that's Richmond. And then we have got some buffalo lawn in the full sun areas. because Richmond doesn't really like the hot. It's fine in the cooler weather, but it doesn't like the very hot, dry weather, so in full sun. So we have got both, but then the buffalo doesn't like the cold. So so it's a bit of a juggle. The buffalo actually goes very yellow in winter. It's starting, you'll see, if you get a big picture of the lawn, you'll see funny patches, and that's the buffalo where it's gone quite yellowish now in the cold weather. Whereas the Richmond stays green right through the year. Lovely and lush and green.
Do you water them both all the year round?
Yes, we water all year round. We don't really use chemical fertilizers on the lawn or really in the garden. We use compost. So if I see that an area of lawn is struggling or like needing more water than I think it should be necessary, we top dress it with compost.
Okay.
And we just keep adding compost onto the lawn as a top dressing to improve the water retention.
Okay, so just in terms of general lawn care maintenance, what would your tips be? Because you must have, I don't know how much, but you have a lot of lawn around your house.
It is a lot of lawn. Okay, so the compost is the first step. So a lot of our trees are leguminous, so they are actually putting nitrogen back into the soil all the time, and that's why we don't need to be adding fertilizer. The lawn never really gets to a point where it lacks nitrogen. It's always growing, and it's except right through in the middle of the cold weather. So yeah, the trees actually help to feed the lawn. The compost. The other thing is mowing. A lot of people mow too short. The broader leaf a lawn has, the longer it should actually be. Okay. If you mow it too short, it's going to just scorch because the actual like runners, these root parts, will be exposed, and that's when it starts to scorch. So
I'm just going to pull up a bit of your lawn here. Yeah. You can see here there's a stem and there's some roots growing out there.
So yeah, you don't want to expose the shoots, I don't know what you call them, but the actual, these things, because then they just scorch. Yeah.
And I think also the basic biology of the plant, because if the plant is making food through its leaves and you cut off all the leaves.
Cutting off all the leaves, yes. So it's really not a good thing to cut the lawn too short. So that is the one tip. So at the moment, now in winter, we're probably only mowing every 10 days. In the growing season, once a week. Yeah. And then, we actually set the blades higher now in winter when it grows slower. Just check that we don't mow too short.
I have noticed in Lusaka, a lot of people in the planting of the lawn, they get rid of everything else. Like you find that it's just lawn, very few flowers, very few trees. And also the other challenge I find with lawn is just the amount of water. How do you deal with those issues, like the water issue? And how do you advise people?
Well, so firstly, water, we have a grey water system put in. We had one put in a few years back because our property, we have a number of houses for rental. And the grey water system, we got a company in Lusaka to put it in for us. It filters the water, so you're using all your household water, sewage water, water from washing machines, whatever. Goes into these underground tanks, and it goes through a whole filtration system. So ours is down there underground, and by the end, your end product, you get this grey water which has no smell to it. It's basically water with EMs in it. Maybe you can explain what EMs are for us. Okay, so essential microorganisms. So it's getting rid of all the harmful bacteria, but keeping the essential microorganisms.
Okay, so everything, even water from your bathroom, is recycled basically and comes back and in a natural way, in a non-chemical way.
Yes, and so you're putting those essential microorganisms back onto your garden as well, which also helps the lawn. And we actually saw a big difference in the lawn when we started irrigating with grey water. It is diluted partly with borehole water because we've got a big lawn, but where grey water is very, very, it just makes so much sense, is in a complex where you've got lots of houses and small gardens and small lawns, because each house will provide enough grey water for its garden. So it really is the way that all complexes in Lusaka and in Zambia should be going, because with the water issues, and we're all relying on groundwater and there's just not enough to go around, grey water is really the answer.
Exactly. And I don't know, well, how much water we lose through flushing.
Yes.
Yes. Everyone's using at least 100 liters.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's an assumption, but
yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's a lot of drinkable water.
Yes.
That is literally getting flushed down the toilet.
Yes.
In a city where, we're having a lot of water shortages just because of the development happening.
It gives me quite a bit of peace of mind because I've got a lot of lawn and gardens, but it just gives me a bit of peace of mind that I know I am recycling a lot of that water. And then the other thing is, if you do happen to have a leak in a water pipe or a toilet that's running and it takes you a few days before you actually realize, at least you haven't actually wasted all that water. It has been recycled and gone onto the garden. So yeah, we use the grey water on our vegetable gardens as well. Some people are nervous to use it, but we haven't had any problems with it. And the guy who put in our water system, grey water system, and even Joseph from Majuro,
I don't know
Joseph Welton, who makes EMs and sells them. He actually drinks his EMs. He takes a tablespoon, I think, a day as a probiotic.
Really? Just that brown liquid? Because I buy EMs from them as well.
So he actually has a spoonful a day. He says it's the best probiotic. So that's actually what we are putting on our garden, diluted with some borehole water. Yeah.
I think I like the idea that you're saying of fully basically 100% reusing all domestic water, used grey water in the garden space. And it must be quite a sophisticated system.
It is. It literally goes from one tank, has some kind of filtration system, to another tank, and there's microorganisms in there, microbes, that break down the harmful bacteria. So at the end, you're not spreading
dangerous diseases and stuff like that.
Is one of the main
and so
ones.
because I was going to say the next thing is, what about the filtration into the soil, all those harmful things? But that's all eradicated in the process, according to what you're saying. Okay. And how much water do you use for your garden every week?
I don't actually know. We haven't actually measured it because it fills up automatically. So we have two, I think it's 12,000 litre grey water tanks, where the grey water, so the system is down here at the bottom of the garden, and it's pumped with a sludge pump into the tanks. And then above that is our two 12,000 litre household water. So that is straight from the borehole. So the two cannot get contaminated. Our household water cannot get contaminated with grey water. And then it pumps onto the garden. The only time we have a problem with the grey water is in the rainy season. If we have a proper rainy season and lots of rain, we actually then have to pump the grey water out to somewhere. But we'll pump it out onto a piece of garden somewhere, and it'll go back down into the system. We do struggle a little bit with the Richmond grass with mealybug. It took us years to diagnose it. We were treating for fungus, and then we were treating for something, and we eventually discovered it's mealybug in the Richmond lawn. And we can't actually work out, it gets it in the hot weather, it gets it in the cold weather, it gets it whether it's dry, it gets it whether it's damp. And it's just painful. But we've actually finally worked out, we tried lots of chemicals, we tried neem oil, and we've actually now worked out that well-rotted chicken manure, we just put some well-rotted chicken manure on it, and it chases the mealybug, boosts the lawn, and off it goes again. And it just has these little periods where so
it happens.
We just deal with it. And
a little outbreak is nothing to worry about. But I think that's the thing, like, once you increase the strength of your soil, the health of your soil, it just feeds into everything else. You got stronger plants, they can manage disease, they can fight off the pests, and all of that. So probably with the chicken manure, you're just feeding into it what element the soil was missing. In that particular area. And then that changed everything else.
Because the soil, so our soil is pretty much very clayey. So it does, when it gets dry, it bakes hard. But by adding the compost, you introducing that organic matter so that when it dries, it doesn't bake hard. When soil bakes hard, especially on small plants with fine roots, it damages their fine roots, and that stresses the plant, and then the plant gets sick. So the soil is so important. Keep your soil healthy and you'll have healthy plants.